Every time you talk about a plan before executing it, you kill that plan before it's born. This isn't a figure of speech. It's neuroscience. And after this video, you'll never open your mouth at the wrong moment again. When you verbalize a goal and receive validation, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurotransmitter release when you actually achieve something. It doesn't distinguish between real reward and anticipated social reward, and the result of that is devastating to your execution. Psychologist Peter Gollwitzer at New York University studied this phenomenon for decades. Participants who shared their goals before acting performed consistently worse than those who stayed silent. The conclusion was straightforward. Talking about the plan replaces part of the effort required to execute it. This has a name, it's called symbolic progress illusion. You narrate the future, receive validation, and your brain registers part of that satisfaction as real achievement. The urgency to act drops because the need for reward has already been partially satisfied. And it doesn't stop there. When you share a plan, you also hand over emotional control of your journey to the outside. The external environment is not neutral, and the interference that comes from outside is more subtle and more dangerous than any internal obstacle. Direct criticism is easy to identify and dismiss. The problem is the embedded doubt that arrives, dressed as concern. Have you actually researched whether this works? There are a lot of people trying the same thing. Are you sure this is the right time? Each one of those phrases was built from someone else's fears and limitations. But once they enter your head, they lose their label of origin. They mix with your own doubts and start to feel like logical reasoning. And suddenly you're hesitating for reasons that weren't even yours to begin with. Psychologists have documented this process as emotional contagion, the involuntary transfer of one person's internal state to another. You don't need to consciously agree with someone's insecurity to absorb it. Contact alone is enough to shift your state. And envy, which is one of the most present forces in this process, almost never shows up with its own name. It shows up as concern, as realism, as honesty. You absorb the effect without identifying the source. And the damage is already done. There's still another consequence of sharing early that most people don't anticipate. When you tell someone you're going to do something, you create an external expectation, and that expectation becomes pressure that didn't exist before. Now, you're not just executing, you're executing under observation. That pressure activates performance anxiety, which is different from the healthy tension that generates focus. It makes you make decisions thinking about what people will think, not what's best for the project. It turns execution into a presentation before its time. And a presentation before its time produces half-finished results. The self-sabotage that so many people experience without being able to explain it originates exactly here. It's not a lack of ability. It's not a lack of commitment. It's the accumulated weight of premature exposure that turned a personal goal into a public obligation before the internal structure was ready to carry it. There's also a dimension that goes beyond psychology and needs to be stated clearly. Not everyone around you is operating at the same frequency as someone in a process of growth. Sharing an expansion plan with someone in stagnation mode creates real interference in your focus and your energy. It's not a judgment about who's worth more. It's recognizing that the emotional environment in which you develop a project directly influences what that project will become. Energy is not a metaphor. It's the mental, emotional, and physical state with which you show up to the work every single day. An idea at its beginning is structurally fragile. It doesn't yet have evidence, doesn't have results, doesn't have a track record to defend itself. Exposing that fragility to skepticism, envy, or outside doubt before the right time means giving the obstacle a head start before execution even begins. The great executors throughout history share this pattern. They work in silence during the process. They let the result make the introduction. And when the world finally sees what was built, it's already solid enough to withstand any questioning. Strategic silence is not about isolation or distrust. It's about preserving creative energy for the only place where it produces results. Execution. Every conversation about a plan that doesn't yet exist drains attention that should be inside the process. Momentum is the most valuable asset in any building process. It's the state where each action feeds the next, where the process gains its own velocity. And it's destroyed by dispersion, by the premature feeling that you've already moved forward when you haven't left the starting point yet. When you talk too much about what you're going to do, your nervous system processes part of that as effort already made. You leave the conversation with a lightness that feels good but is actually emptiness. And the project that should be growing inside you was partially discharged to the outside before its time. The rule is simple and goes against everything the social environment rewards today. Don't share the plan, execute the plan. Share the result. Let what you built speak for you, not what you intend to build. There's a credibility that only a concrete result carries, one that no anticipated narrative can produce. When you show what you built in silence, the conversation is completely different. You're no longer asking for advance credit, you're presenting evidence, and there's an additional reward that comes with this process. When you execute in silence and the result appears, you discover with precision who around you genuinely celebrates your victory. That information about your environment has a value that goes far beyond the project itself. If you're going to share something, share it with someone who is already where you want to be, with someone who has concrete experience in what you're building, not with someone who will validate you because they love you, with someone who will guide you because they've already done it. The third necessary shift is timing. Wait until the project has enough structure to withstand contact with the outside world. You'll know when you've reached that point. It's when your conviction is stronger than any doubt someone could bring from outside. Your financial goal, your investment plan, your decision to change your trajectory, keep it with you until you're ready. Not because you're afraid of being held accountable, but because the project deserves to arrive whole, not be consumed in conversation before it truly exists. Silence is not absence. It's total presence in what you're building. It's a decision not to divide your attention between doing and being seen doing. It's the most strategic choice anyone in a building process can make. The world rewards those who talk more, post more, narrate more, but the most solid results in history were built by people who made no noise during the process. They made noise with the result, and that noise lasted far longer. You don't need to announce what you're building for it to be real. You don't need external validation to know you're on the right path. The only audience that matters during execution is you looking at the work and recognizing it's being done with integrity. The result that comes from silence has a different texture. It doesn't need context, doesn't need explanation, doesn't need a supporting narrative. It arrived whole, went through the process without interference, and speaks for itself with a clarity that years of advance announcement could never produce. Every goal you keep to yourself is an act of respect for your own process. It's recognizing that what's being built deserves the best possible environment. And the best possible environment starts with silence, focus, and energy directed exclusively toward execution. There's a version of you that doesn't need an audience to act, that doesn't need approval to move forward, that doesn't need an announcement to know that what it's doing has value. That version isn't far away. It shows up when you stop narrating and start building. The difference between those who finish and those who stall midway is rarely talent or resources. It's the ability to sustain the process without external validation for as long as necessary. It's the maturity to understand that silence during construction is part of the strategy, not the absence of one. And when the result arrives, when you can point to something concrete and say it was done, in that moment, you'll understand with full clarity why the silence was necessary, why the protection was intelligence and not fear, why the protected environment produced something that premature exposure never would have allowed. In that moment, you'll share, but you'll share what remains, not what could have been. And that difference will be visible, will be felt, will be the kind of thing that needs no further explanation. Silence is the strategy that separates those who plan from those who build. It's the space where execution happens without interference. It's where the results at last are formed away from eyes, away from noise, away from the need for approval. Keep the plan, execute in silence, let the results speak. In the coming years, the difference between where you are and where you want to be will be determined by decisions you made in silence, not by the plans you announced, by the projects you protected and executed without needing anyone to tell you they were worth it. The validation that matters comes after, and it arrives with a force that anticipated validation can never match, because it's built on real evidence, on concrete results, on something that existed before any opinion about it. You have a plan right now, or you will soon. And the most important decision you'll make about that plan is not how to execute it, it's who and when you're going to talk about it. Guard that answer with the same care you guard the plan itself. This video was direct because the topic demands it. No filler, no unnecessary metaphor, no detours. Strategic silence works exactly like that. It goes straight to what matters and wastes no energy along the way. If this content made sense to you, tell me in the comments whether you've ever lost a plan by sharing it too soon. I really want to read your experience. Subscribe to the channel because there's a lot more content like this coming. And leave a like before you go, because it helps this video reach more people who need to hear this right now.